Comics and Complication, Depictions of Women in Western Comics. This is coming from Bleeding Cool. It's part of a series the author Chelsea Bloomfield's doing called Comics and Complication. This really caught my eye, this icon, and I started looking at it. I'm like, this is kind of an interesting story. I want to do this article. So we're going to get into it in just a second. Before we do, if you want to support me and my work, collegeofthedead.com. My College of the Dead Graduation Day comic is complete, shipped on time, 48 pages, full color, really well written. I think you're going to really like it. I've gotten some great feedback on it, and thank you to everybody who supported it. The Mermaids is an upcoming series I have. It's no launch date yet, but it's like Game of Thrones with mermaids. It's full color, 48 pages. Back to the article. Comics and Complication, Depictions of Women in Western Comics by Chelsea Bloomfield. This just came out. It starts. Welcome to the 7th entry in Comics and Complication series. The first dealt with the concept of heroism and the nail. The second looked into anger and World War Hulk. The third is about comics as propaganda for social change. The fourth entry is about Spider-Man and his place in the healthcare system. Odd, right? The fifth entry looked at the concept of patriotism in the comic industry, and the sixth entry looked at the relationship comics share with violence and adolescence. This week we look at how Western comics have depicted women over the years. They've depicted them a little bit like this. Is that bad? Is it good? Is it compelling? This is the 90s. It was fantastic. We loved it. It was great. Let's go on and see a little bit more. This image is coming, by the way, from an inside page from Witchblade #1. All credit going to Top Crow Productions. Sarah Pezzini, in the scant Witchblade armor, is a striking image in any rendition, fully equipped and covered or with next to nothing left to the imagination. No matter what, she's looking great. First impressions depend on one's unique introduction to comic books as a whole. All right, good point for first impressions, right? If you just saw this, you'd be like, oh, so comics are like that, huh? However, it was clear with very few brushstrokes from Mark Silvestri that the target market for this supernatural thriller was not intended to be a younger audience. Is that fair to say? Yeah, well, at the time, for sure, in the 90s, this is not something that you would target for children. But what's funny was the rap on comics in the early 90s, and certainly in the 80s even more so, was, oh, comics are just for kids. Comics are just for kids. And we had to overcome that as comics people. And then I think it was when the movies started coming out that people stopped saying that, and just they were widely accepted for people of all ages. So, moving along back to the article. However, it was clear within a few brushstrokes, okay, we got that. While the sexual depiction of women is not a distinct characteristic for Western comics, it has indeed risen to the forefront of discussion with recent allegations concerning Warren Ellis and Jason Latour and others. That's another whole story. I did a video on Warren Ellis and what he's been accused of. He's not accused of... he's accused of manipulating people with his mind and hypnosis and things like that. So there's a whole other world to that. You can check out the video to that. I'll put a link in the description. These portrayals are merely two sides of one coin, with some interpreting a New York cop in thigh-high boots as the exact portrayal of feminine strength, and others diminishing her to little more than mere eye candy. Now, a lot of people have really been passionate about Witchblade and followed Witchblade and liked Witchblade. And, you know, how are you supposed to control people's interpretations? You know, does she look sexy? Does she appear sexy? Of course she does. Yes, she does. Is she drawn this way to be sexy? Yes, but it's part of feminine power. So is that bad? You know, I mean, I think that's what the whole concept of discussing it is. Obviously, to some people, it's fantastic, and to other people, it's bad. So who gets to decide if you're allowed to do this or not? You know, to draw women in a powerful and sexy way at the same time. Who gets to decide? And who should be able to decide? You know, my take is the creator. You know, if you're the author, if you're the artist working with the writer, and you decide you want it to be that, I'm a publisher. So I work with writers. I don't draw. right? I'm like an editor-in-chief and an editor, and sometimes a co-writer, depending on the project. Co-writing G.I. Jackrabbit right now with Professor Geek. So, it's up to us. But there's obviously a whole power system that if you're working just for a company and just for a publisher, the publisher has a power system and they're going to decide, not the creator, who's going to publish what. Why does this exist? Why is this so sexy like this? Because Image Comics did their own thing. And they decided, hey, we're the most popular artists in comics. We're going to publish our own comics. We're going to write them our way and put them out our way and market them our way and sell them our way. And they'll be our way. And it started a revolution in comics. And different things happened with the characters over time and their publishing companies or whatnot, depending on what the creators wanted to do. But there was no one to tell them how to work or what was good or what was bad. But it's a great point that these portrayals are merely two sides of one coin. Some will say that, yeah, she's sexualized, and some will say she's sexualized, but she's powerful. But probably no one's going to say that she's not sexy looking intentionally, because it's kind of obvious. Going on with the article, if fans believe that comics tend to reflect the society in which they represent, the portrayal of men and women... Oh, you get vault. This is scary. All right. Wait till you see this imagery is like crazy looking, but we'll go get to it in a minute. If fans believe that comics tend to reflect the society in which they represent, the portrayal of men and women offers a unique insight into what is particularly valued with each gender. For women specifically, according to Frederick Stromberg's Comic Art Propaganda, those roles are simplified into either harlots or hags. Okay? These, what a harlot is super sexy, and hag is ugly old woman. There was pushback to this particular thinking primarily in the 1970s with comics such as Abortion Eve. I'm going to show you the imagery below, and you'll be like, please don't go. Let's go back to Witchblade. We will as soon as we can, I promise. Okay, such as Abortion Eve, coming from independent publisher Nanny Goat Productions. Now, I've never seen this comic before or anything like it, and I've seen a lot of independent comics, and there's weird underground stuff that people do, super weird stuff. I'm not going to point you to any of it, but yeah. Anyway, I never heard of Nanny Goat Productions. This comic, created by Joyce Farmer and Lynn Chevely, albeit far from the stereotypical rendition of women in comics at the time, or hopefully ever again, offered something quite unique to audiences, a creation by women for women. All right, conceptually, sure, that's interesting. But then look what it looks like. In fact, this comic came hot on the heels of Roe versus Wade and showed the different reasons women choose abortion and the emotions tying into that decision. Okay, well, then it does serve a purpose. But the thing is, there is something to how the work is presented. It's not like... It doesn't have to be ugly, does it? To have a point? Do you have to make something ugly for it to make a point? Put in the comments below what you think. I certainly don't think so. I don't think it helps. I think it's just like in a pleasing voice. You want to hear something in a pleasing voice to be persuasive. If you're being abrasive, you show something ugly. That said, art is art, and it's hard to judge art sometimes. But for the love of God, this is scary. Now, the response of the pro-life movement was to distribute its own artistic propaganda in a debate that continues to present day. So basically, honestly, I don't know which of these is pro and which of these is against. They're both scaring me. I much prefer to look at this. Now, while I was preparing this article, odd coincidence, Bass Marine Comics, a friend of mine on Twitter, a great guy, sent me this link and said, hey, you might want to do an article about this, Adam. Maybe you want to cover this in a video. And just like interesting timing. I'm not going to cover the whole thing, but it's interesting. This comes from, I'll put a link in the description to this as well. This comes from Heroic Girls, How to De-Objectify Women in Comics by Renee DeLiz. And, the thing is and I like this point that the author made, because it really is very clear. Okay, wasn't that... The author makes the point that basically the way that males and females are represented in comics represent what their values are to society, like what that ideal is contributing to society. So depict women in a way that people admire, visually. Depict men in a way where they're muscular and powerful. There's certainly a lot of legitimacy to that, because if you're depicting everyday people, they're low status value. They're not interesting to look at. And again, like, are you going to look at this and read the story, or this and read the story, or this, and try to get down to whatever their point might be? It's so abrasive to see something that's not pleasing. But back to how to de-objectify women in comics. This is coming from heroicgirls.com. I like the way this article is handled, actually, because, she explains her intent here well, and she explains that it's not that you need to, it's not that you must, but that if you choose to, here's a methodology how to do it. Doesn't make it, but doesn't basically judge if you decide you want to or not. This is just like artists communicating with artists. So this is what Renee said. Want to challenge yourself to focus less on objectification and more on character? You're helping change things and you'll be her personal hero. I mean, to me, no. But to her, yes. Drawing women sexy is an automatic response to many artists, done without thought. I was like that for many years until I recognized it. If you choose to draw women sexy, that's fine! ! So that's why this article made it onto my video. Discussing alternatives and recognizing patterns should not threaten you. It's no threat. It's fine to talk about why things are constructed the way they are, but it's not fine to insist that publishers, editors, artists, writers depict all their characters this way. But she's not saying that, and that I appreciate. My intent is to help those who want to promote change in their work, which can be challenging, not to shame those who choose otherwise. Again, very respectful. So this is by Renee DeLiz. Hopefully I'm pronouncing her name properly. And you can check her out on heroicgirls.com. And this is not a new article. I'm looking at the date now. This is from 2016. So maybe Renee is more aggressive right now. This is her Twitter feed. Do not contact her and bother her. But if you're curious to see what she's saying that is current, you can go ahead and do that. Again, if you want to support me, this isn't objectified, is it? Well, I mean, in a way, in a nice way. This is an ultimate zombie picture. So if you want to support my work, collegeofthedead.com, graduation day. This book's shipping immediately, as is the prequel. And you can also sign up for The Mermaids at epicmermaids.com. It's like Game of Thrones with mermaids, and it will be coming soon. No launch date yet, but you'll be on the free email mailing list, which would be fantastic. I'd love for you to be on that list. Thanks again for listening, and I will see you again soon with another video. And if I don't see you, I will miss you.